Aloha and welcome to the Everything You podcast. My name is Nicole, and over the episodes, I'm going to have a number of different guests talking all things fitness, health, and wellness, and how they prioritize themselves throughout their careers and their busy lives. Aloha and welcome to the Everything You podcast. My name is Nicole Smart, and today I have with me a very special guest indeed. I have Rose Ferguson. We connected last year on a collaboration, and Rose used to be a runway model and editorial model and has turned into a functional medicine practitioner and nutritionist. And I've got Rose with me today to talk about how she has been prioritizing her health and fitness and how it has changed over the years. So welcome, Rose.
Hi, Nicole. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for coming on. And yeah, I mean, we connected obviously over our collaboration last year when you were doing the reset. And we did workouts together, and you obviously doing the nutrition side of things. But let's take it back to the beginning and when you started your modeling career, because it's a big transition to go from modeling into functional medicine. So how did you get into modeling?
Well, you're going to laugh, but I got scouted in McDonald's.
No way.
Which everyone thinks
of all
is
places
hilarious now, considering what I do now. So yeah, I was in McDonald's on Oxford Street, and I got scouted by a photographer called Corinne Day, who I went on to work a lot with. And that was when I was 15, and I hated it. I did a few jobs, not with her, with someone else. I really hated it. And then, so I stopped. I wrote a very formal letter to my agent.
Oh, wow.
This is not blah, blah, blah. And then, but when I was 17, I wanted a car. So that all went out the window, and I went, hi, it's me.
I'm back.
So then I thought I'd do it for a year. I was supposed to go to university. I took a gap year. I was living in London, moved to New York instead. 15 years later, still modelling. So I modelled for a long time.
And in terms of how you prioritized your health and fitness then, what would you say were the main things that you did? Or was there anything in particular that you can think back and thought, oh, do you know what? I really made sure that I did this to kind of carry me through, especially in the early years?
Well, the reason I'm laughing is because I had a really good time. So, I partied a lot. But actually, in all seriousness, one thing that I've always done is I've always been quite sporty. So me and my friend, photographer David Sims, who's now a major photographer. I'm like, all right, Dave. We used to kickbox. We used to go to New York. We used to go to Crunch Gyms and do Muay Thai kickboxing. And I was obsessed. I mean, so obsessed. I'm sure that I went without going to bed sometimes, like just go straight. Like I would not miss my sessions. So I used to do, so I really loved that. And then actually, I can't remember what her surname is, called Brooke. She was a very, very famous New York Pilates instructor. And then I sort of got into a bit of Pilates there. I used to go to Jiva Mukti yoga. So I would always, even when I was going mental, do that. And actually, if you ask me why, I wouldn't be able to answer it, because it wasn't because I was aware of muscle. I know that one of my agents once told me I needed to back off the boxing.
Oh,
because
wow.
I was,
it was starting to come through and
yeah.
getting some shoulders.
Which, is not probably what they say to guys.
Yeah.
But I don't really know why I was doing it. It's just because I suppose I'd always done sport. It made me feel good. And I just kept a baseline going even then. And then on the food front, I actually think that New York, living there, was one of the reasons I sort of started. I think it's where little seeds started to grow, because I would have green juices. So it would be like a bank balance to me. I'd go out and I'd work and I'd travel. It's quite, full on. And then it was like a bank balance. That would be spending. And then I'd try and up my credit with green juices and healthy food. So I suppose it's a bit of a balancing act.
Yeah,
without really planning it, but it was.
Yeah. And I guess in some ways, obviously it must have been making you feel good, and I think and I think that that's really important, that people do need to know that it can just be things that make you feel good.
Yeah.
And that is also part of wellness as well.
So
what was the what was the defining moment that kind of took you into functional medicine and nutrition? Was there any, or was it kind of more of a, this is the route that I kind of want to go down, and I'm just going to go and study and see what happens?
I think it's interesting because a lot of people ask me how I did it or where I went. And I think, honestly, I was in my early 30s. Modelling is not an all-life career. You know, it's also something that you don't have a whole lot of control over, and which becomes less enchanting, I think, the older you get. You're like, I want to build something, you know, and I love working, and I wanted to have a bit of control around that. It was compounded by you know, I had a daughter, then I had two more, and I had them a year and a bit apart. So I had two very little ones, 3 years, you know, but she was a bit older. She was 6. Woo. And I didn't want to travel, and I was in my early 30s. So it all sort of came together. I think, you know, I come from a very complementary medicine background. My grandmother had a health food shop. My mum is a kinesiologist. I grew up homeopathically. And I think nutrition, because I was feeding my kids, became suddenly I was very focused on why. Why am I going to all this effort of making all these little jars? And I wanted to know why. And then, you know, and that's sort of, and then I realized that if I wanted to actually practice, then I needed to go and get qualified. So I went back to do nutrition and naturopathy, actually, at the College of Naturopathic Medicine, the CNM, which I think is quite well known. And then when I'd sort of got through nutrition, you know, after about 4 or 5 years, I think I felt I wanted more. I needed to know more. And so I started with the Institute of Functional Medicine. So I started doing my functional medicine training. And then I don't know why this happened, but I applied to do a master's in nutrition research and practice. Which overlapped slightly with the end of my functional medicine. So basically I was in college for years. But then, and the masters, I love functional medicine. The functional medicine was amazing. But then the masters was torture, absolute torture. I'm very glad I did it, but my God, because it's very, very academic. It was obviously research. It's really useful to have done it. But
so at the time you were doing this, how old were your girls?
Well, it spanned, so 1 and 2 and 6. And then I finished my master's probably not that long. I didn't finish my master's actually till 2020. What are we, 24, 22?
Oh, okay.
So, because I took quite a big gap, probably longer actually, between my nutrition was 15, 16. And then I probably started my functional medicine in about 2018. So I don't know, you know, it was around then.
Yeah.
But when I did my nutrition and naturopathy, yeah, they were 1 and 2 and 6.
Yeah, that's insane. And I think that's one of the questions that I was going to ask you, just about how you managed to navigate food with such a full house and how you planned meals and things like that. So I've got so many clients who have children. Like most of my clients are ladies in their 40s who have about 2 children specifically, and work as well. And so they sometimes find it hard to kind of just, you know, plan and to make sure that they've got everything that they need. Is there anything that you found yourself doing when you had all 3 of your girls and you were studying at the same time?
Yeah, I think it's amazing what you can do, you know, and I was also working as well. It's really challenging. There's no doubt about it. And when it comes to food, I also had you know, they changed their eating, you know, dietary requirements. So there were times when I had a plant-based, fully vegan, a vegetarian, pescatarian, 2 omnivores. There were always 2 of us who were eating everything. The other 3, their requirements would change. So baseline in our house would usually be quite planty because it would cover everyone. And I think I tell you that I've got 2 words: batch cooking. Yeah, that's what I did. I batch cooked, and I would batch cook, and they would have to suck it up if we had the same thing 4 nights in a row. I don't care. It's good for you, you know. It's and I suppose if you batch cook something like a stew, whether it's beans or beef or whatever, then you can change what goes on the side of it. You
that's
can
what
make
I
it
do.
into a pasta sauce. You can make it with quinoa. You can have it with rice. You can make it into a tortilla wrap. just change it, but you have the base the same, because that's a bit that takes time.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point. And it doesn't have to be boring, and it can be interchangeable. And that's how I kind of prep my meals as well.
Yeah.
In terms of the modelling, you mentioned something really interesting about the question that I wanted to ask is about how you went from job to job, and going for castings and things like that. And obviously you don't get cast for absolutely everything. How did you kind of navigate that side of things, where you'd kind of go for a casting, maybe you really wanted it, or maybe it was like a really good opportunity and it didn't go in your favor? Like, how did you kind of, in terms of wellness and mentally keeping things,
I think how should I think? The reason I'm hesitating is because there's something that I've got to say about body image that occurred to me later in life. I think the casting thing, I to be honest, actually, and this is going to sound really sad, I never thought I'd ever get it.
Okay, yeah.
So actually, when you hear that, it's like, oh, bless, I just had terrible self-worth. I just assumed I'd never get it. So I never felt let down. And actually, I see, because two of my kids model, and they get themselves so worked up. And I'm like, you've never had the job. You're not losing it. It was never yours.
Yeah.
What is the issue? But all I was going to say was that when I look back at my body image, or the impact modelling had on my body image, I don't think castings did, but being on a shoot, or maybe at shows, and you're, feeling, and it's not you that you feel it. There's definitely a moment where some people are really careless with how they behave around you when they like yank some clothes, or and actually it took me a while to realize that had impacted my own body and my image of my body and my relationship with my body. And honestly, it didn't occur to me until probably my early 40s, and I think it was more admitting it to myself, because I wanted to come out unscathed of modelling.
Yeah.
It was nothing serious, but it definitely was a challenge to love my body again, which is really insane. But I think when you're being judged and criticising yourself, that inner voice going, you're too big, you're too tall, you're too wide, you're too athletic, you don't have big enough boobs, it's just... So, yeah, but I think the casting thing, I never believed I'd get.
That is one way to sort it out. It is funny.
Just going low. Keep the expectations low.
Do you want to lose 10 to 20 kg this year for good? Don't do any of those fad diets. Dukan, Cambridge, keto. You need to learn how to eat the things you enjoy to get and stay in shape. This might include eating out, it might include chocolate, it might include alcohol. Stop over-restricting and get the weight gone once and for all. If you want sustainable results this year, drop me a follow to learn more about what I do.
So earlier we were talking about consistency and how people can beat themselves up quite a lot about not getting things completely perfect. And you wrote an article earlier this year when you were turning 50 with British Vogue, talking about some of the life lessons that you've learned over time. And I think that one of the paragraphs was about consistency and about, not everything has to be perfect, but as long as you're doing a little bit each week or each day, it makes a massive, massive difference. Like, how did you come to that conclusion? Is that something that you kind of learned in recent years, or is that something that you learned over time, like as you were kind of modeling and transitioning and building your family?
I think probably from work, actually, from working with patients and clients and just making sure that that's how I get the best out of people. Because, because I suppose I see people who are often not very well, and you're not able to completely overhaul because it wouldn't be safe. And so just building up consistently is what makes a difference. And then from a personal point of view, no, that's not true, because personally, consistency it keeps me sane, because when I go this binge purge cycle that everyone lives in, whether it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, really good, Thursday, Friday, it's a shit show, whether it's in the day, I'm really, really good all day until 5 o'clock, and then you go, oh, sod it. And, and I think I got a bit tired of that. And I think also around booze, for me, it was quite a big one. Okay. That I'd be really good, have a big night out, and then be really bad, and then have to get back on. And it would disrupt my consistency So, I just suppose it's taking out the peaks and troughs of life, sorry, is what I'm trying to say. So if you're consistent and you're eating the majority of the time ways that help you and that suit you, if you're moving the majority of the time, you can be more stable emotionally, physically, symptoms are reduced.
Yeah.
So I suppose that's what it is. Sorry, that was not very clear, but
no, I think that makes sense. And I think it's something that I notice with clients as well, where they can get themselves in a massive tiz because they haven't done, what they should have done, like for the whole day or for the whole week or whatever. And it's like, you get back on it. And I know it can be quite tricky when you're kind of like working towards something and, you can see it in the distance. You're like, I just have to put one foot in front of the other. Yeah. But it's interesting that you wrote about that, because I think that is really definitely something that's big.
I think what people do, which is what I'm really, which is that once something goes wrong, that's the terminology we use. You're doing, you're on your plan, or whatever, you're eating really as you should, healthily, which we actually refer to as a diet, don't we? Because actually eating healthily, people go, oh, you want a diet? No, I'm just eating what my body can actually read, understand and use. But then, and then you have a tub of Haribo, of Haagen-Dazs. And then from that point, you've screwed it or you've ruined it. And then people downward spiral rather than just having the tub of Haagen-Dazs
and moving on.
Carrying on.
Yeah.
I do, I used to do that. I'd be like, oh, well, that's it now, and it's because it's just an all or nothing mentality and it's not sustainable and you will rebound. There is only one way out of that. And if you're holding that tight, the stress, I was saying to you earlier, I see people who are so stressed by holding so tight that it's actually counterproductive and it will not maintain, and they're actually making their lives miserable. And you've got to look at it as a 360. It's like, actually, how do I feel? Am I relaxed? Am I stressed? Am I enjoying life? It's not just about sticking to a plan rigidly.
Yeah, it's so true. It's really true. And I think it's just being able to see that as well. And what I've noticed with my clients is when they start to see that they can, have like a blip, quote unquote, and get back on it and it's fine and they still get results, then they start to think, oh, actually, like I can do this and I can move forwards. And
it's really an amazing thing to teach someone, actually, particularly with the gym, because I would imagine that people, they screw up. I keep saying that. They have a blip. They have a blip with food, and then the knock-on effect is then they go, I'm not going to go to the gym. I'm going to, and then it's just like their behaviour changes.
Yeah.
But actually, if you, like you say, for your clients, I'm sure if they learn that they can have a blip and get back to it and it makes no difference at all.
Yeah.
That's the 80-20, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Exactly. And in terms of what you've got going on the next few months, so we met doing the reset last year. Yeah. What have you got planned for this year?
So this September, there is, because I was thinking about the reset, because it was good because we went through gut, liver, and then energy, which actually is great. I was like, that's genius. That's exactly what people need in September. But what I've got, we're going to do the 360. And the 360 is much more focused on, balance, I suppose. I'm trying to address the protein situation here because I feel it's a little bit out of control.
Yeah.
I feel like that, again, it's just obsessive. So I'm actually doing a bit of little protein cycling in there, because what people don't understand about protein is if you're eating loads of protein all the time, you've got that anabolic switch on. You need to turn it off sometimes for you to rest and repair. So that's sort of what the 360 this time is about. And what else I've got? I'm writing a book.
Oh my God.
That's all I've got on my mind. So when people ask me, I'm like,
amazing. Congratulations. Yeah. What is the book about? Can you say?
I can. It's a reset, funnily enough. It's a 4-week program and we're looking at metabolic health. It is designed, it's very much speaking to midlifers, because it started out as Generation X, but actually Gen X are closely followed. Gen X are closely followed by millennials.
Yeah.
So, millennials are now, they're going to hate me for saying this.
Am I midlife?
Well, when were you born?
I was born in 1989.
You millennial. I think it's the 85ers who are shifting into midlife because they're going into 40. So
Yeah, because I have this conversation quite a lot recently because I'm 35, and some people do say, that's midlife starts kind of there, and I'm like, oh,
no. I actually don't think it starts to be 50, but I think the rule of thumb is when you start creeping into your 40s, then, but I honestly don't think so. 30 and 40 felt no different to me. 50 is a slightly different thing, particularly I think for women, because your hormones are definitely on the change. Mm-hmm. And for me, definitely, because I'm in a different stage of life because my kids.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah, so this book started out as Gen X because we are uniquely a generation in the most, I'm not going to swear, but really in big trouble. And it's not, everyone goes, it's because of the rave scene. I'm like, it's nothing to do with that. It's to do with antibiotics and the rise of ultra processed food, which is absolutely key to my generation.
Yeah.
It's, it rose in my generation. So the metabolic impact of that is diabetes type 2, cardiovascular. And I think people accept loads of stuff. They shouldn't be like aching joints, fatigue, No. We shouldn't be feeling like that in our 50s. So that's what the book is about.
That is really interesting. That's so exciting.
Yeah, but again, it's very much based on consistency and small things.
Yeah.
Like not as we were talking about, not your life, having your life, but just do it as part of life. Not even as an extra, just as part of it.
So what's in your vitamin stack?
That's a really good question. Right. Vitamin D is not because it always is, but because actually I didn't practice what I preached, and I have a tiny amount of osteopenia in my lower back in my L5, which is totally fine. But even the functional medicine doctor I work with was like, you're actually taking your vitamin D? I was like, nope. So practice what I preach, people, and I will too. So yes, I'm taking vitamin D. I'm taking a little bit of iron at the moment, supplemental, not a Design to Health one, just because that was a bit low too. And then what else am I taking? I change quite a lot sometimes. Oh God, I'm not being very concise. Okay. I also am taking SPMs, which are like an omega-3. They're called they're called SPMs, self-pro-resolving mediators. Okay. That's a mouthful. And they are anti-inflammatories.
Nice.
And that's kind of it, really. I take things like quercetin. I take sachets combinations of little polyphenols like quercetin, turmeric. And that's kind of it. And then I'll do powders. So if I'm making a shake, it's full of creatine, collagen, protein powder. I don't know what you feel about protein powder. I like it.
I like it as well. I think it serves a purpose. I think it's fine. And I think obviously having too much of anything isn't good. But if you find something that's good and it feels okay in your digestive system, then I think that's all right,
Yeah. I think it's good for people who are busy, talking about people who are working, got kids, it's like, so I'll have a bit of collagen, a bit of creatine, a bit of protein powder, and maybe some greens in there, like a green powder. And that's kind of it. But
okay,
it does change.
One final question.
Yeah, go on.
What would you say to a lady who is in her 50s and wants to kickstart her health and fitness journey in terms of doing the best for her body where she hasn't in the past?
Never. Has she never done anything?
Never.
Okay. Do you know what? All I would say is start, because we know there's data showing that if you start when you are 90, you can change the body composition. So I would say one of the biggest things when you're 50 is your muscles. Your muscles are the biggest metabolic organ in your body. They hold you up, for one, but they are so unbelievably fantastic and amazing. So feed them and work them and do it slowly. You'll be amazed at how quickly, we all know this, but the body responds so well. I think if you've really done nothing and you're coming to it, it depends how active, because you could do like an elimination plan. Yeah. Just to give everything a little Rest if you've been eating very inflammatory foods. So you could take all those out and just give yourself 2-3 weeks where you are looking in, immersing yourself just to kickstart. But if you're just coming from nothing and you want to gently get into it, then I would just be increasing your veg, making sure you're getting decent protein throughout the day. I wouldn't be counting grams personally. And starting to do some movement, functional movement, walk from here to there, wherever you've got to go, and strength. And that's where I'd start, and hydrate, obviously. But that's kind of where I'd start, I think, and set yourself, rather than wanting to change in 5 days, think this, where are we, September, think, okay, by next spring.
Yeah.
Let's, and this is actually where I would journal, I think. Not necessarily every day, but like every week maybe, or every month.
And how you're feeling.
On how you're feeling and what you've noticed, because you will forget. Everyone says, I don't need to write that down. I'm going to remember how I felt. And you forget.
That's a really good tip. That is really good.
Because you can look back and go, holy shit, I've come a long way.
That's what I do with my clients when they first speak to me. I ask them how they're feeling now. And then when we speak again in 6 months, 12 months, and they're like, I feel like this. And I'm like, remember when you said before that you felt like that? And they're like, oh my God, I can't believe it. Yeah. And that's really nice. So that's a really good tip. The journaling's great.
Yeah. Just write it down.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on. I really, really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for watching the Everything You podcast. My name is Nicole. And if you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe.